Hello, and welcome to I Watched It With My Wife, Documentary Edition.
Ooh.
This is the podcast where my wife Sarah and I watch documentaries and docuseries, and we review them. This week we are reviewing episode 1 of the Netflix documentary This Is A Robbery, about the art heist at the Elizabeth Stewart Gardener Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. So this is one of the biggest art heists in history. It's the biggest in the history of this country. I think one of the top 5 art heists in the history of the world. They took a lot of famous paintings from this place. A few Rembrandts, a few others. It's a crazy scenario. So Sarah, tell us what you thought of episode 1 of This Is a Robbery.
Okay. So a little bit of context for you guys before I get really big into my thoughts. This is what, our third or fourth time trying to watch this?
This is our third time watching the first. Well, this is our third time completing the first episode. We have tried to knock out 2 episodes and then record twice before, and both times one of us fell asleep during episode 2 because of how late we have to try to watch this.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm going to say that this documentary, while the topic of it is really interesting, the documentary itself is a little sleepy. I'm going to give it that. I feel like we could have a little more action. Like, there should be explosions. I'm just kidding.
Well, there were no explosions when this happened.
I'm just kidding.
To give you a little backstory here, but basically what happened, it was the night of St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 1990, actually going past midnight, so the morning of March 18th, in Boston, which has a very large Irish population. So they go crazy for St. Patrick's Day. For those of you not living in New England,
well, Boston goes crazy for like every holiday, though.
Not
but St. Patrick's Day is hardcore.
Yeah, I was gonna say not to the level they do St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July are the two they go massive for.
Yeah, Boston's a fun city. It's actually one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite city. I love Boston as a New Englander. I'm just gonna say that. So I do feel like the documentary itself is a little bit, and this is a bit of a harsh critique, but I feel like the music in it is a little sleepy, not suspenseful. This is something I noticed tonight. And the voices of the people in the documentary are kind of slower and soft-spoken. You don't have your outspoken Boston accent person. Like, yeah, buddy, whatever. You know, yeah, get out of my way, guy.
You don't have that guy in episode 1, you're right.
You don't have that in episode 1. But the characters and the suspects are interesting. The people in the documentary they're art people, right? They're either art people or cops.
In the first episode, yes.
Other than that guy.
They haven't really gotten into one of the suspects. One of the guards who became a suspect. You hear from the art director, you hear from one of the other employees there. And then you hear from, the head of some local police departments. I don't think you actually hear from Boston police, but it's from
but you hear
other police. And then you hear from like FBI and U.S. attorneys.
Yeah, so you're hearing from art people who aren't, I don't know, there's a word, and I don't want to sound like I don't like art people, because I love all people. Art people, like museum art people, they're a little bit
pretentious.
I wasn't going to say that exactly, but some along those lines. They're not lively. No, you know what I mean? Like museum people just aren't lively. Like they're probably not fun at parties.
Okay.
I mean that in a good way. They're the serious people. They're the people who are very controlled. And so that makes it a little, I think that's what is making this documentary so hard for me to stay awake through.
Well, again,
is the personalities. Everybody's too controlled.
Again, one episode in, you haven't gotten to any of the Boston people yet, because they interview people who spotted who actually saw the suspects go in, because they point out they were dressed like cops. That is why the guard let them in the first place. So they'll interview those in later episodes. The only one you really get right now is a professional art thief, somebody who they would have suspected right away, but he was in federal custody at the time, so he couldn't he couldn't pull it off. And this is one of those crazy things, because of the art is so well known, they can't, it's not like you can just sell it on the open market. There's a lot of stolen goods that end up getting, sold on that, but you can't do that with this. So that's why a lot of them, police have speculated that maybe it was a collector who hired somebody to just take it for him because it wasn't for sale. I mean, that's the most likely scenario, but the real question is, how did they get in? Not how did they get in, but how did they know the guards' rounds? How did they know that they would have 81 minutes to steal stuff? Because, as the officer pointed out, in a robbery situation, 10 minutes is considered a lot of time. They were in there for 81 minutes without worried about cops showing up. Something is off there.
Well, yeah, and that's what the documentary is kind of leaning towards right now, is that it's an inside job, and I definitely think that it is an inside job. Side note, and I want to go back to the professional art thief. What was his name again?
Miles starts with a C.
Clayton?
No, I don't think it was Clayton. Miles Connor.
Okay, so going back to Miles Connor real quick. I have a theory on him. He is basically Joe Exotic if Joe Exotic had class.
Yeah, you've said that 3 times. I still don't see it.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's like a classier, artsy, worldly version of Joe Exotic. That being said, all right, listen, he owns animals. He's a thief. He was in a band. He's in trouble with the law.
I was say, they're both criminals. And
they're both nuts.
Both criminals, and they're both nuts. But, I did not watch Tiger King. I refuse to watch Tiger King.
I still think you should watch Tiger King.
I lived Tiger King. I don't need to watch it.
So, anyway, but I do feel that way about him. And I wouldn't doubt that even though he was behind bars, he was somehow involved in this.
I wouldn't doubt that either. But, that's the thing, is police don't have evidence of that, so they can't do anything.
But, I mean, come on, the guy's got the perfect alibi.
He does. They're focusing, in the documentary, they are focusing on one of the guards who was the last person they registered footsteps of with their, with their sensors in one of the rooms where one of the paintings was stolen. He is the one who propped open the door before the outside door for about 15 minutes before the thieves arrived. He is the one at the desk who let the thieves through the dead man's tunnel, as they call it. You go in one door, and then once that one closes, you can't get back out unless the guard lets you out, and you can't get in further unless the guard lets you in through another door. So you're stuck. He's the one who let them in there. He is the one, and then they brought reference to how he was duct tape in a way. Now, there's a lot of focus on him. He's definitely a shady character, but from what I can tell, I don't think he's involved in this. It just seems more like he's an old hippie who had done so much drugs that he didn't really remember much of what not to do.
Well, he wasn't old at the time. He
True.
was 23.
He was a young hippie at the time. He's an old hippie now.
Yeah. So I don't believe he was involved either. I think you can easily explain him opening the door. He went outside to smoke.
Yeah.
Uh,
But why wouldn't he close the door when he came back in? Because it was still
because he
propped
was
open.
probably going to go outside and take another hit in a bit.
Hmm.
I have a theory that he was gonna, or he just kind of was stoned and forgot.
Yeah.
I do believe that it was probably something like that. I think that the alarm probably did go off that night, and he was expecting somebody to come and check out what was going on at the museum because the alarm went on, and that's why the cops went in there so easily. The cops, when I say cops, I say that in air quotes, but you guys can't see me. I mean fake cops. Get in there so easily. I think that the people who went in were involved and they did know the museum well, but I don't know that they necessarily knew the Abbott guy because I don't think
Yes.
even
The
with
guard's name is Rick Abbott, by the way.
yeah. So even with the disguise that they said that these guys had, which they believe they had fake glasses and mustaches and were dressed like officers, I'm pretty sure if he knew them, like he he would have known, hey, wait a minute, this is that person with a fake mustache on. It's very rare you see somebody in a disguise that you know and you don't recognize them.
Very true. So that means either one, he was in on it and is not revealing anything, or two, he knew nothing. We're both leaning towards he knew nothing on that.
Yeah.
My thought is that the thieves cased the joint. They probably visited several times, learned where important stuff was, and knew what to do. I feel like there's an inside job. I don't know whether it was a guard or a curator or something like that who probably helped them. I don't think that Rick Abbott helped them. And we know, I'm pretty certain the other guy didn't help them because he was a fill in. He was not the regular on the shift. He wouldn't have known he'd have been in there that night to help them set up because, he came in because the regular guy called out sick. And the regular guy was like, 70 something years old and was the guy who would call out sick if it rained. So it was a very fortunate situation for these guys. I think they wound up with more time than they thought they were going to have. But for the thieves, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else that was a guard there or a curator or something else was part of an inside job, even if they didn't show up to do that. Because again, and Rick Abbott wouldn't have recognized any of these people coming during hours that it was open because he was the nighttime guard. He was always there when it was closed. He never saw anybody other than his partner.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of that. The only thing I think, now we don't know much about the second guard yet, based off the first episode. I question if the second guard who was there, kind of knew the other guy was going to call out that night. That's a possibility. Hey, it's a major party holiday. This guy ain't coming in tonight. Or if he had a plan with the thieves, like, hey, the next time I'm on, I'll let you know when they call me. I'll give you a call and we'll do this.
That's a possibility. Having actually seen all of the second episode, spoiler alert, I don't think he's involved either.
I don't remember the second episode because I fell asleep during that one too.
Yeah, we will watch it. Sarah's point is valid. The music, a lot of it is slow and sleepy until they get to a certain point. Then it turned really creepy on when it starts, singing "I Know How to Get Through Windows and Doors." It was sung in a really creepy voice. It's not something I really wanted to hear while watching it close to midnight. But anyway, it was weird. And most of the music has no lyrics to it behind it. It's meant to heighten what's going on. It doesn't really heighten anything. She's right. It's
just there.
It's there. Well, no, it gives a perfect art museum vibe. The problem is,
snooze fest.
If you're not into that world, it can be very boring and it can be very sleepy. I have no interest in going to this museum other than, hey, I went to the museum that got robbed. That would be my reason for wanting to go.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I want to go because I saw the documentary on it now. But the thing is like, I don't think if we go, I don't think I would want a professional tour.
No, God, no. Oh, no.
I'd
rather go to the Lizzie Borden Museum.
Oh, that'd be more fun.
Yeah.
You'd be like, there's a ghost in this room. Someone died in here. There's probably old blood splatter on this. Yeah, no, I would have fun with that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm weird.
Boston is a great city that has a lot of great museums. This is just not one that we would have checked out before this. Now, I'm going to give another angle here, though. For those who don't know, who haven't listened, I work at a news station in New England. We cover pretty much any story that has to do with this museum because of how big of a deal this was. So here we are 30 years later, and if something pops up with, Elizabeth Stewart Gardener on it, with any connection to the heist, smallest like passing, maybe a connection, we run the story because of, people around here still care. It was a big freaking deal. And so that's a big reason I wanted to watch this documentary or this docuseries, is because for the past 12 years, I've heard so much about this place from these news stories that I kind of want to know, how the hell did this happen?
Yeah. I don't remember the actual. So I grew up around here. Jeremy didn't, and or in New England, and Jeremy didn't. And in 1990, I was what, 5?
We were 5 years old. Well, actually 4 in March of 90.
But even after that, I don't remember too many news stories about this museum. And I've been to Boston several times, and I don't believe I've ever visited it. I don't even know if we've walked by it.
I don't know what section of the city it's in to know if we walked by it.
I thought it was in Back Bay, but I'm not sure.
If it's in Back Bay, we probably have walked by it then.
We could have, but I don't know. I don't remember.
We've walked around significant portions of the city in our visits just because it's cheaper than taking
a cab. Yeah.
Subways are cheaper than the cab too, but
yeah. And so I don't know if we'll ever visit this museum, but I can't even imagine taking my kids to an art museum. I think they'd be so bored.
Yeah,
like my kids they're not art museum people. But in no disrespect, please know I mean no disrespect to art museum people when I say art museum people aren't like fun at parties. I don't mean any disrespect. I just mean they're just not lively. They're a little more controlled.
I feel like they would be Captain Holt and Kevin on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, when they're at parties.
Oh my God, yes.
Except for they're not being played for comic relief. They're just really like that. But so that'll wrap up our the review of episode 1 of This Is a Robbery. We got 3 more of these. And just so Sarah remembers from episode 2, there will be some more people with some Boston accents talking about the gardener.
Yeah.
They'll throw it around. Get out of my way, man.
We need, the Bostonian with like the Dunkin' cup going, whatever, guy.
Yeah.
What are you wearing shorts for? It's 30 degrees.
That would be why they're wearing shorts. It's only 30 degrees,
It's 30 degrees. It's like summer. I'm ready for the beach. I'm sorry. Did I do that too well?
Yeah. Your cousin from Boston.
Is that what I sounded like?
For those of you who don't know, that is the part of a Sam Adams advertisement slogan.
Oh, I love Sam Adams. Sam Adams, sponsor our podcast. I love you.
Oh, I forgot, Yes, there'll be that. But Snacks with Sarah. Forgot to do that.
Okay. Snacks with Sarah tonight. We had queso.
Mm-hmm.
Like homemade queso from Epicure was the packet. And we basically made their ooey queso. I got this off a friend of mine. If you want more information, please email me at withmywifepod @gmail.com.
There you go.
That's our email. So we had the ooey queso and some chips, and I had a summer ale, but I actually wanted to try a different brand of summer ale. I tried the Shipyard summer ale today. And I would say it's not a bad summer ale. I just strongly prefer Sam Adams over it.
Your cousin from Boston.
Whatever, guy.
Anyway, I had Dr. Thunder. Went with the Walmart brand of Dr. Pepper, which has no pepper taste. It's, yeah. But, I wasn't in the mood to drink tonight. But that's neither here nor there. But so thanks for listening. We will continue with episode 2 in our next version of the docuseries. And if you're listening for our movie series, it will be Raya and the Last Dragon. All right. But that'll do it for I Watched It With My Wife, documentary edition.
Ooh.
Bye.
I'm sure they have a lot of interesting things to talk about, but